welcome back to 417 Fox, your channel for the automotive DIY enthusiast. On today's video, I am super excited because we get to actually spray something. So all the hard work that's went into this car so far, with all of the prep and all of the sanding and all of the body work, now you can start seeing the finish line when you get to pull that trigger for the first time. So let's take you through, recap a few things, and I'll show you that right now. Now guys, if you'll remember last video, I showed you all of the work that needed to be done on the roof on this car. You can see all that body work is done. Down the pillars here. I've removed the hatch. As you can see, quite a bit of work was done on the hatch, getting it flattened out and blocked out. Now something you want to remember, especially if you're doing a car that is going to be have a metallic in it, when we use 60 grit sandpaper, you want to make sure you remove those 60 grit sand scratches from any of the areas where you've done body work, because if you don't, even if you put your high build primer on it, it will shrink and it will fall back into those scratches, and that could show up in your final paint work. So any of the areas that I've done any kind of body work on where I've had to start with 60, I have finished in 220. Any of the areas of the car that I have not done any body work on, I've just taken that down to 400, which is just perfectly fine. I will not use any of the high build primer for those areas. Those areas will just get a sealer, which will be our last step before we actually put paint on the car. This roof on this car, it needed a lot of body work. I've had a lot of 60 grit and I've stepped it all the way up to 220. This whole roof will get 3 coats of high build primer on it. Then it will get blocked down flat. You would not want to put high build on all of these different areas, because then you're going to get some irregularities when you go to block it out. Now, for say example, on the side of this car, as you can see, only had 3 portions on the door that needed repair. So for that, I will just spot these areas with high build. I'll probably go a little wider on this and here. Now here I'll take the high build from the roof all the way down. The hood, I've got it worked on. This hood actually came in and it had some damage right here, and it's a new hood it happened in shipping. So all that's been fixed and it's been blocked out to the point where you can't feel any of this. Now what I'll do with this is I'll put 1 layer of high build on this, let that flash off, and then go ahead and do the hood, the whole hood, and 3 total coats of high build primer, and this whole hood will be blocked out. If you're going to spend time on anything on a car, you can get by with not putting necessarily 3 coats, say on the side of the car or in some other areas of the car, but when it comes to the top of the car, say for example like your fenders and your hood, I have spent a lot of extra time getting these completely smooth. But I want these things to look like glass when we get done. I have used wax and grease remover over everything, cleaned all the panels, make sure I've got everything spaced apart where I've got room to work. Remember, I'm not putting high build on every part of the car, only the parts that need it. I do want to make one quick note about this urethane bumper cover. Don't expect to order aftermarket parts, whether it be a hood or whether it be a bumper cover, and think they're going to fit perfectly. One of the worst things you could ever do is go and do all of your prep work, sand it, get it ready, and then go install it on the car. Always install first on the car to make sure the fitment is where it's going to be. Because if I would not have done that on this bumper cover, this side fit perfectly. This side over here did not. I had to do some extensive body work on this side to make it to where it would fit up against the fender just right. And I'm very particular on body lines matching up, and I'm sure you guys know that Foxbodies from the factory did not fit very well right here from the factory. So take that extra time, test fit everything, then pull it off. That way you know once you've got paint on it, it's going to fit right when you put it back on the car. This bumper cover came primed, and that's great. That's less work that you have to do. It's raw plastic underneath that. and you would have to do a lot more steps, which is what I'm going to have to do on the Cervini's body kit. One quick note, anytime you're going to go and prep raw plastic, so since I sanded past all of the primer on this corner of the bumper cover, I needed an adhesion promoter, so I put the Bulldog. It takes 2 coats, and that will allow your primer to stick to that raw plastic. Alright guys, it's time to get busy primering. Then I'm going to go get these nice 417 Fox clothes off, get some nasty clothes on that I don't mind getting primer on, and we'll get to putting the high build primer on. Alright guys, I got my workstation all set up. I've got all of the products out that I need to get started, and got this car ready to get some primer, surfacer, or high build on it. I had a half a gallon left over of this when I did I did a 95 Lightning was the last paint job that I done, and I still had a half a gallon left of this high build primer. This is a hybrid that I'm using, and what I mean by hybrid, for one, it's a DTM, which means direct to metal. So if you do have any bare metal, you don't have to etch that first. This will bond straight to metal. The other thing is it can be mixed in 3 different types of product. And what I mean by that is it can either be used as a sealer, and if you're using it as a sealer, it would be 4 parts of the primer, 1 part of the activator, and 2 parts of a reducer. If you're using it as a primer filler, it would be 4 parts of the primer, 1 part of the activator, and 1 part of the reducer. That's what we're going to be doing. If you're using it as a high build primer, you would not put any reducer in it, and then it would be high build. And I'm not going to do that, even though I would like to. I just do not have a 2.0 tip gun. I use this Harbor Freight as my primer gun. It's a 1.8 tip, and yes, could you put high build on there with 1.8? You could, but you're going to struggle with getting it to lay down, so that's why I'll use it as a primer surfacer, and I'll go with 3 coats on that, which is perfectly fine to go 3 coats because most of it's going to come off anyway. So, and this gun is fine. I've got really, really nice guns for my clear and also for putting down base. I would like to get a nicer primer gun one of these days, but that's not at the top of the priority list right now. So I just get by with this Harbor Freight gun, and there's nothing wrong with a lot of those guns that they sell at Harbor Freight. Guys, I'm telling you, it has more to do with the guy that's using it than the gun. Now, yes, is there a difference in quality guns? Absolutely. Or I wouldn't have probably $1,500 sitting over there in that other toolbox worth of guns. But this, I think I paid, this was a 2-gun set that has a small detail gun in it. I've not used that. And it also has a 1.4 and a 1.8 exchangeable fluid tips for this one. That way you could use it for base or clear coat. So for $40 or $50, you can have kind of an all-in-one system. And to be honest with you, depending on the level of quality you want to do, you could actually do pretty decent with this. I wouldn't recommend spraying metallic with it, but if you're going with a solid color and went with a Harbor Freight gun that you got $50 in and you're only going to use it a couple of times, go after it. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright, so I think it's time we go ahead and get to mixing. I usually, either the paint store will give you the TDS or your technical data sheet on this, which is going to give you all the specs regarding what temperatures it can be sprayed in, what fluid tips you should use, what the recommended pressure is. So all the different details between about flash times at certain temperatures, what your mixing ratios and all that, they'll usually print them off for you at the paint store. Of course, I don't know what I did with this, so I always just pull it up online. And it's pretty easy to read. You don't have to be some technical guru to pull up this product, and it will tell you exactly what your mixing ratios are, depending on if you're going to use it as a build primer, high build, or sealer, what your application is, sprayed at 1 to 3 coats, medium wet coats, allowing 10 to 20 minutes to flash. And since we're not in a booth, I usually go to the high side of flash times. And the thing is with flash times, if you do not, I would rather err to the side of caution when it comes to flash times on any paint products, because the reason why is if you go ahead and put that next layer on too soon and that product hasn't had time to flash off, so if you do not let the solvent escape from that layer of primer that you're putting on, or base coat or clear coat or whatever that is, you'll get what's called solvent pop. It's not very common in primer, but man, if you smash that primer down and don't let the next layer get flashed before you put it on, you could have some issues down the road. Now, if you'll remember when I was showing the TDS sheet, I'm going to mix this at a 4:1:1, which means 4 parts of the primer, 1 part of the activator, and 1 part of the reducer or thinner. 7, which would be the max amount, and then we'll take it to the 7 for the 1 part of the activator, and then up to this 7 here, which will probably give me about 1.5 of these 20-ounce cups. I like to get down here so I can, if I'm looking at it at an angle, I will not get my ratios the way they should be. Sorry, I probably got this gun right here in your way. Let's slide this top there for now. We've got our activator. All right, I figured it'd be the easiest to show you on this hatch, and I'm going to go ahead and start with 1 full solid coat on this whole back portion of the hatch. Now, when I'm spraying, I did do a spray out actually over there on the hood, just in one area I want to get some extra build on from an area that had some additional body work done on it. I found with that level, with it mixed to this ratio, with 15 psi, I needed to go in on the fluid just a little bit, so I went ahead and took it 1.5 turns in from full on the fluid, which made it lay out a lot nicer. The problem I had was it was coming out probably with a little bit too much peel, which is fine because I could sand it off, but if I went ahead and refined that, because I could have either went up on pressure or I could have went down on fluid to get it to lay flatter. So I opted to go down on fluid, which just means I have to go a little bit slower, and that way I'm not having so much overspray in here in the shop. Because if I went ahead and just want to smash that stuff on, crank that PSI up to like 25 or 30 PSI and have full fluid, full fan, and rock and roll, and it'd spray great, but guess what? That stuff would be everywhere. So I'm going to have to keep the pressure down to like, let's see, I am at, let's see here, I'm at 13 and a half, 14 PSI right now. I've got my fluid turned in about 1.5 from full, and I've got my fan still at full. And when you're spraying this, you want to spray at approximately 5 to 6 inches from the panel. So right in this area here. And what you want to do is you can even practice. Especially before I walk around the car, I like to practice and kind of go through the different steps. All right, so once I get this sprayed out here, I'm going to go ahead and put you on time lapse where you can see the rest of the shop, and I'll go through and get all of the panels sprayed. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap this up for today. We'll come back in here tomorrow and go ahead and get this sanded down. It did turn out pretty good. It laid down pretty flat. Still got some work to do with some sanding. But for now, I'll go ahead and say goodbye till tomorrow and walk you through how it looks with this high build primer laid down.
The next day.
Bend over.
Welcome back to 417 Fox, your channel for the automotive DIY enthusiast. Today is day 2 on our body work for the two-tone Cobra clone. We have all of the panels in high build primer. Most of them have 3 coats. We've let that cure overnight, so come back in here today, and I even have some help today to my block party. So Peyton, I'm sure you've seen him in our last video when it was the father-son and Mustang fun. So he's come out to help me today with the block party. We're going to be blocking the car down with 320 and getting it ready to start machine sanding. Peyton, you ready to get a little work done?
Ready to get some sanding done.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It looks like so much fun. You can see it on his face how much fun it's going to be, right? Hey, that's what it's about. Father and son getting to hang out, him helping me out, coming over here, because this is a lot of work, guys. It's going to really pay off, but it is nothing but work. And that's what separates your really nice paint jobs from your mediocre paint jobs. Peyton and I were talking about when he came in here, and he was like, hey, Dad, look how slick that this primer is on this car. I was like, yeah, man, it laid down really good. You probably could take a red scuff pad on this, scratch it up, and paint it. It'd look pretty good. I mean, yeah. Look here. I mean, look at these fenders. They look great. Look at there. I mean, they look slick. But as soon as you put that block on there, and like I said before, the block does not lie. You can see the texture really fast, can't you, Peyton? Oh, yeah. I mean, but you don't see it. But as soon as you put that block on there, so we want to get rid of all of that texture and go ahead and get everything blocked out. And then what our next step is, I'm going to take 400 grit, and then we'll start with the machine sander. But we're going to go ahead and get everything blocked out, and Peyton's here to help me today. So it's going to be a little fun for you to get to watch somebody other than this beautiful face. Look at this guy.
I'm way cute.
Yeah. All right, man, let's get busy. All right, guys, so I got my favorite son here with me. I've got him set up. We're going to start with the 320 grit. I've already done a little bit of instruction with him over here where he's getting this smoothed out. Now what we're using is 3 different block sizes. The longer the block, the better, especially for a huge flat surface. But not every part of this hood can you use this really long block for. So Peyton's kind of got that figured out already. So of course this is probably going to be the block that you'll use mostly on some of these sides. You really want to stay away from your edges, and you can really work your edges like this. And this primer, it's not since we just sprayed this primer yesterday, it is not 100% cured. It is cured to the point where yes, you can sand it, but if you would have waited a week to sand this primer, man, this stuff would have been like concrete. So don't wait too long. So make sure you plan your work and then work your plan. Get in here, and when you're sanding, and I was showing Peyton, you know, it's sometimes I can tell somebody how to do something, and I tell you how to crisscross. What are you going to do? You're going to make an X, which is perfectly fine. But if you're going over the edge every time that you make a crisscross, you're going to burn right through your primer. And then of course you've got to go ahead and address that before you put any paint on, because you can't put base coat right over bare metal. Does that make sense, Peyton?
Oh yeah.
So we're going to watch Peyton for a little while, and I'm going to put it on time lapse, and he's enjoying this as much as he can. I don't think there's a lot of fun to doing blocking, but the thing we'll get to do is when we look back after we painted this car, Peyton will say, you know what, that work I did on that hood, and now look at this hood. Because it ain't what the clear coat that goes on, the base coat and all that makes it look great. This right here, what we're doing right now, is what's going to make all that lay like glass. So I'm going to put you on time lapse, We're going to get busy having this block party, and we'll talk at you in a bit. It's about time to wrap this video up. Peyton and I have had so much fun blocking this, I can't hardly stand it. No, I'm just kidding, but what we do know is all the work we're doing right now is going to pay off in the end. I'll kind of take you through what we've done so far. We probably spent just about an hour blocking this hood. Probably got about 20 minutes left on it, and then I still have everything else to get blocked up. So I'm going to kind of show you what you're looking for. Most all this has been done, but I stopped on the middle part of this hood where I was blocking. Now I'll show you the big differences. That's good. You can see the orange peel or the texture, and you can see the texture in the primer. That's the areas you want to continue to block down. Peyton did a good job on this side here. Had a little bit of a high area right here, but overall, man, I'm telling you, considering I had to do quite a bit of body work right here in this area, man, that blocked out really nice. This steel 2-inch cowl is going to look so good on this car. Alright guys, you can see I still have a lot of work left to do, so I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to leave you for now, but make sure you stick around for the next video on body work, where we will start with 400 grit and work our way all the way up to our final sanding grit prior to paint. You'll want to stick around for that one. Thanks for watching.